Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron Hale, and this is Point of Impact. And I've made it my mission with this show to bring you the guests and information to help you break free from the grind, live your best life, and level up so you can make a lasting legacy and make an impact in this world. It's pretty funny. We were talking before the show started, and my guest and I were chatting, and it was plainly apparent that even though I tend to have an overdeveloped output through my mouth because I've got an underdeveloped input through my eyes and ears, so to speak, my guest also has a very well-developed output through his mouth. And it's just because he's very high energy, is excited about what he does, and he loves to share it. So I figured since it was my show, I'm the host and he's the guest, just fair that I hand over the mic and let him share all he wanted. My guest, Rod Khleif, is a first-generation immigrant who was raised in Denver and had a childhood of meager, humble beginnings. He was poor, but he was also determined to lift himself out of poverty and into wealth. He did so through real estate investing. Today, he's a multimillionaire with a very impressive portfolio. The path wasn't a straight line, though. It had plenty of ups and downs. The downs he likes to call as seminars, or the way I like to say it is that failure is chock full of information if we're willing to pay attention and learn. And he definitely learned. But what he also learned was that there's a vast difference between achievement and fulfillment. They may be related, but they're definitely different things. And though he'd achieved quite a bit in his life, including becoming very wealthy, he wasn't yet fulfilled. And now he's finding his fulfillment in a few ways. One, by charitable giving through his foundation, in which he helps out local children in need, and through education. Through his top-rated podcast, courses, and mentorship, he's teaching others, everyday people like you and me, how to buy these huge apartment buildings that seem so unreachable. He's doing this through apartment building syndication, and he's showing others how to grow their portfolios. So I hope you enjoyed the show. By the way, if you haven't already, please give the show 5 stars and leave it a review. If you're not already watching it on YouTube, why not? Go over to YouTube and watch the show. Without further ado, my guest, Rod Khleif. So happy you're here. It's been a long time coming because, though I don't think you've known me for very long, I've been listening to your show for quite a while.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I'm excited to be here. Let's have some fun today.
Terrific. Well, you know what? First, I actually want to ask you where the background of the name, where does that come from?
I'm actually half Arabic. The name is Khleif, if you pronounce it in the Arabic format. My father was an Arab and my mother was Dutch. I was actually born in the Netherlands, in Holland, wooden shoes and windmills, and immigrated when I was 6 years old. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's kind of like Bert Kreischer. He says all the time is I before E, except after C, and in German and Dutch, I guess. But
right.
Tell me, you're like I mentioned, you're a fantastic podcaster, prolific. You've been on for a while, almost 900 shows now, and episodes, and all about multifamily investing, and
right.
You're showing you're helping others, everyday Janes and Joes, learn how to invest in large apartment buildings. Can you tell me, before we get into that, tell me a little bit about that background and how you got into it?
Sure. No, you bet. So, I'm blessed. I host the largest commercial real estate podcast really in the world now. We just broke 17 million downloads, and my focus is multifamily. And but it all started, I will tell you, I'm going to go way back. I told you about immigrating when I was 6 years old. I came over here with my brother, Albert, and my mother, Svancha, and we ended up in Denver, Colorado. And I will tell you, when we first got there, we didn't have much. And, I remember we ate expired food. We actually shopped at an expired food store, and we drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning, which was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. And, I remember wearing hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all all the way through junior high school till finally I got disgusted and lied about my age when I was 14 because I was tall at Burger King and got a job flipping burgers so I could buy my own clothes and then ultimately buy a car, which every kid wants. And, and I'm sure, you've got listeners that had it harder than we did. And I will tell you, I knew I wanted more, Aaron. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And she was a bit of an entrepreneur herself without any formal education with her babysitting money. So she invested in the stock market successfully and also invested in real estate. And with her first real estate acquisition was a house directly across the street from us that I purchased, or she purchased, when I was about, 14 years old for $30,000. And then when I was 17, a couple of years later, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. And I said, what? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. I could have my own office. Now they got smart. You need some experience before you can be a broker, but I was a broker. Now I was smart enough to go work for another broker, but I was still living at home my first year in real estate. And my first year I made about $8,000. My second year I made about $10,000. But my third year, I made well over $100,000, which back in 1980 was some real money. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3, Aaron, that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was the gentleman I was working for, the broker, taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology and how 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and psychology. And fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term in 3 states. I own thousands of apartment units now. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God or the universe can give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008 and 9 for me. I lost conservatively $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and at my boot camps and so on, and is the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And probably more importantly, the mindset it took to recover from losing everything. And I'm happy to drill down on some of those strategies if you'd like, Aaron.
Well, I love it. In fact, I totally agree. If it weren't for mindset framing my beliefs, I would have been stuck at home,
Right.
trapped by my conditions, my
Sure.
disabilities. But you got to step out there. And in fact, you have your coaching, mentorship programs. You also have online
Yes.
courses, and I noticed one of your online courses was a confidence and
Yeah.
courage and
Yeah.
confidence course.
So right.
So you do
Yeah, thank
focus
you.
a
Yeah,
lot
no,
on.
I spent a lot of time on that, Aaron. I spent about 20 years after that following Tony Robbins around the planet, and he's probably the best in the world at mindset and psychology. And yeah, so you were asking me about your power clips before we started recording on my podcast,
Mhm.
and I will tell you, I believe that's why the podcast has been so successful. So, by the way, if you're listening and you haven't listened to my podcast, I'll give you a link tree where you find all sorts of free resources, including the link. It's called rodslinks.com, or you can text links to 72345. But on my podcast, even if you're not interested in multifamily, you should check it out because I do these clips called Own Your Power, and they're really motivational clips. And I will tell you, again, I don't care what you're interested in. If you're listening, if you want to get juiced, you give me 5 minutes a week, I will juice you. And there's hundreds of them there about every single topic I can think of relating to mindset and psychology and success and self-actualization and improving your life and improving who you are. And they're very, very powerful. And I know that's the reason the podcast has been such a huge success. And, because people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And so, like I said, if you go to that Rod's links or text links to 72345, there's a lot of free resources there, as well as the link to my podcast. I hope you'll check it out. It's called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. But like I said, Aaron, if you'd like, I'd love to drill down on some of these success strategies because I think they will help people that haven't taken action yet, that know they need to go out there and do something, or help people that need to recover from a setback, or
Well,
yeah,
I did have a question here.
sure,
Why apartment building syndication? And now a lot of
sure,
people will say, yes, I want a financial freedom. I want to invest in real estate, but in a whole apartment building, hundreds of units,
Sure.
how is that? How do you even, eat that elephant?
Sure.
And that's a lot of mindset right there. So,
Sure. Well, I'll tell you why. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because when I lost everything in 2008 and 9, Aaron, it was my houses that pulled me down. I had 800 single family houses along the Gulf Coast of Florida, and I had several apartment complexes, okay?
mhm.
It was the houses that caused me to collapse. And by the way, I only owed 30 cents on the dollar. I was only at a 30% loan to value. Okay, people, I get hate sometimes when I talk about my story and they're like, "Oh, you were over leveraged." No, I was not. I was at a 30% loan to value. Houses just don't cash flow as well as multifamily. And so, and I'll give you some other rationale for this. So my houses were up and down the Gulf Coast of Florida. Florida has no state income tax, so our property taxes are proportionally higher than some other places in the country, which of course impact cash flow. Also, I had some properties in wind and flood zones, so higher insurance, which impact cash flow. But what killed me was these were C-class houses. There's A, B, C, and D. A is brand new. D is the hood. Stay out of the hood. Okay, ask me how I know. But C is right above the hood. And so these are older houses. It's a tougher demographic. They're harder on them. So there is a lot more maintenance on those houses. And if I sent a maintenance man to one of my apartment complexes, everything is the same plumbing parts, electrical parts, HVAC parts, appliance parts. And so we could stockpile those parts and my maintenance guy could be in and out in an hour. Well, if I had to send them to one of my 800 houses, that could be an hour and a half one way. They have to go to the house, see what's wrong. Then they have to go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account because there's no way to stockpile everything you'd need for 800 different houses. And so what took an hour at one of my apartment complexes took all day at one of my 800 houses. So they never really cash flowed much of anything anyway. But then the final straw was I didn't really pay attention to tenant demographics back then, Aaron. I didn't focus on where they worked. And I discovered, if they had good credit, for example, and they had a good job and they put a deposit down, I let them rent. Well, I discovered after the fact that a lot of my tenants were in the contracts in the trades like plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, which fell off a cliff in 2008 and 9. So they didn't have work. And so it was like the perfect storm. And that's why I lost everything. But here's the reason I started my podcast 7 or 8 years ago, Aaron, was because my multifamily did just fine through the crash. If I had not cross-collateralized those apartment complexes with packages of houses, I would still own those apartment complexes. And so I started my podcast to tell people, for God's sakes, if you're going to buy real estate to hold, buy multifamily, don't do single family. Just, use me as an example why, because I've owned 2,000 single family houses and I will never own another one unless it's a third, fourth home for me. So, and that's why I started the podcast and why when I got back into real estate, it was to do apartment complexes because they just did just fine. And I will tell you, we are on the precipice of another reckoning in my space, in the commercial multifamily space, commercial real estate space, period. There is a ton of debt coming due and a lot of operators are in trouble with these interest rates, with adjustable rate loans called bridge debt right now. And there's going to be a lot of pain. A lot of people are going to lose assets, but I will tell you, there's also incredible opportunity coming. And that's, really what I'm focused on. I'm in a lot of cash. I've got access to a lot of cash. I've created an opportunity fund, to take advantage of some of these distressed assets that are going to come online because there will be exponential opportunities to capitalize on those.
Okay, so single
long answer, but there it is. Yeah,
yeah, that's a great answer. In fact,
okay.
we've pretty much ruled out single family, or at least given a really good reason why not. What about apartment buildings specifically? Why not say commercial, retail, storage?
Okay. Good question. I will tell you. I'll give you a great example why. Okay. The first one is multifamily rents exceeded pre-crash levels in 08 and 9 in less than 3 years. That's how fast it rebounded. And that was a major crash. Also, when COVID hit, I thought the world was going to stop then. I was sure we were going to have a big crash. We didn't, thank God. But of course, we printed trillions and trillions of dollars, which impacted inflation. So we're suffering through that now. The reckoning had to happen. It's happening now. But I'm going to tell you, when COVID hit, self-storage didn't get help. Office didn't get help. Retail didn't get help. We got hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent relief money from our tenants on RC assets. So we did very, very well. So there's another reason. Listen, we are a renter nation, Aaron. People will always need a place to live, and we are becoming more and more people are becoming renters. I mean, notwithstanding the price of houses and what's happened with these stupid interest rates. So, it's in my opinion, the safest and the most stable asset class out there. And so that's why.
Office space definitely is still feeling the hurt from
the office space is getting killed. Office space is getting killed, Aaron. I mean, I've got a Forbes here that shows the vacancy in the 6 largest cities, our occupancy, and it's in the 70s, 67 in San Francisco. I mean, these assets don't cash flow. They don't break even if they're not in the 80s or early or low 90s% occupancy. So I got to tell you. Anybody that thinks there's not going to be a reckoning, I think, is naive. I think, and see, here's the other problem. About a third of the 1.6 trillion in debt that's coming due by the end of next year is held by small and regional banks. I think we're going to see a lot more bank failures. I hate to say it, but I really believe it. I think that's going to probably be the catalyst for this reckoning that I anticipate is coming. And I'm not a doomsayer. I'm looking at it as an opportunity. With crisis comes opportunity. I think there's going to be incredible opportunity. I think everything's going on sale. Businesses, I think there's going to be a great opportunity to buy businesses from baby boomers that are retiring. Certainly all asset classes of real estate. I would stay away from office personally, but I do love self-storage, love mobile home parks, love flex space, office warehouse space. So there's other asset classes. I do like single tenant retail. I like a lot if the tenant is a big national brand. And so, there's a lot of opportunity, but I really think exponential opportunity is coming, and I'm gearing up for it. So
you want to own a bank?
No, probably not. Too much scrutiny, but yeah.
Okay. So, every day, Jane and Joe, they have their mind wrapped around and set on apartment buildings. What do they need to know?
They need to come to my boot camp, okay? Let's be real, Aaron. I've got a 3-day boot camp coming up September 15th through the 17th. They can come for $197. If the price has gone up, use the code HALE, H-A-L-E, and you can come for $197. It's not a big sales pitch. And I'm going to go through what they need to know in just a second, but let me just pre-frame it by saying, get your butt to my boot camp, because it's ridiculously reasonable and it's not a big sales pitch. It's 3 days of training, every aspect of this business. So here's what they need to know. And these are the high-level topics that I'm going to be teaching. How to build a team, because multifamily is a team sport. You don't do it alone, okay? How to find those team members, how to screen those team members. We go through all of this. How to pick a market, how to evaluate that market, what to look for to make sure it's growing in that market, how to find deals, the ways that you haven't probably thought of, very unique ways to find deals, how to underwrite those deals and evaluate them, do quick preliminary evaluation, how to put them under contract, how to finance them, how to raise all the money you need from. This multifamily takes money, but it doesn't have to be your money. I will tell you, I'll brag for a minute. I've got coaching students. They're called my warriors. They now own somewhere between 170 and 180,000 units that we know of. And I've only been teaching 5 years. I'm very, very proud of that. And I will tell you, most of those were done between warriors in a team. And so, building that team is important. How to find team. There'll be dozens of teams at this boot camp in Orlando. But the point is, so financing them, raising money for those deals. And a lot of those warriors bought those deals with none of their own money. This is not like guru hyperbole. This is real. Okay. They raised the money, and you can do that in the commercial real estate space. A beautiful thing. And so, how to syndicate them, how to joint venture them, how to property manage, all of that. And I'm known for mindset and psychology. I spend a lot of time on that. You come to my event, you will leave so juiced, you'll be coming out of your skin ready to conquer the world. And I will tell you, I've never had a complaint. I had thousands of people attend. Oh, that's a lie. People have complained that the room was too cold or the food sucked, but that's it. No complaints about anything else. But anyway, and by the way, the boot camp site is also at Rod's links. And again, if the price has gone up, it's not $197 any longer, because we're doing like this last minute special with incredible bonuses that are worth thousands of dollars. I won't make this too much of a sales pitch, but the point is at Rod's links, or text links to 72345, use the code HALE, H-A-L-E, Aaron's last name, if the price has gone up for $197. And if you come and you don't love it, I don't mean like it, I mean absolutely love it, after you come, I'll give you your money back. No questions asked. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything. So those are the things you have to learn to get started. And there's a lot, but here's the thing, Aaron, because this business is a team sport, you don't have to master all of them. Okay. And I'll talk about that if we have a chance to go into some of the psychological pieces that I typically cover. But there in the multifamily space, there's a mouthpiece like me going out there building relationships with brokers and investors and talking about deals and so on and so forth. So if you're an extrovert and outgoing, that's the role you can play, building those relationships. If you're an introvert and you're, love analysis, you can do the underwriting on the deals. If you're process driven and you've got construction experience, or even if you've just got management experience, you can be involved in the asset management. You could be, like I say, you can go out there and raise money for deals. You can find deals. There's just so many things you can do in this business. So you want to make sure you're playing to your superpower, okay, and whatever you're good at. And yeah, there you go.
I tell you what, reading P&L spreadsheets, T12s, for me, that's like playing Minesweeper.
Wow.
So that drives me crazy.
So you're one of those mutants we can throw in a room and throw raw meat in once in a while if you've got a spreadsheet to go over, huh? You're one of those people.
So I'm the guy who isn't usually in search of an underwriter.
Okay, good for you, buddy. I can't do it, buddy. I'm more of an extrovert, and I'm not that. I don't love the analysis. I can read a P&L and a rent roll and all that. I just don't love it. And one of the strategies that I share with people is to play to your strengths. Don't try to build your weaknesses. Your strengths are your greatest assets. So if you are analytical, focus on that. If you're outgoing, focus on that. Process driven, focus on that. Because if you're playing to your strengths, you love what you do. And work is play. You never work another day in your life, right? And the other piece, if you're playing to your strengths, Aaron, is you're passionate about it. And passion is required to influence people. So, I tease you about, being an analytical, but I will tell you, analytical people are the most successful people in this business by far. But here's the other problem, though. Most of them have to check off every single box before they make a move. And that will slow many down. And so I give an analogy for that. If that's you, and listen, I love you. If you're analytical and you're listening, I get it. And again, you are, this business is primary empirical. It's numbers. You get the numbers right and you ask all the right questions, you're golden. But you've got to make that move. You've got to take that first step. And that can sometimes be the scariest step of your life. So let me give you an analogy. And that is you can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlight only seeing 60 feet in front of you. Now, you may have some obstacles, but you'll make it. And it's the same way with this business. You're not going to see the whole road, but you know other people have done it before you. So just remember that analogy if you're caught in analysis paralysis for actually going and creating a side hustle for yourself to make this happen for yourself, especially, like I say, if you're analytical.
I'm a huge fan. I'm an advocate of the teamwork method. Of course, I couldn't have gotten half of what I've accomplished done without an incredible team around me.
Right.
And like they say, if you've got a great deal, the money will find you. But is that true? First, you need the analytical person to make sure it's a great deal. But then you need that outgoing person. You need the networker to. If nobody knows about your deal, nobody can bring in the money. So
exactly,
absolutely, and that's another great aspect of the boot camp and conferences in general is that it's a networking opportunity. So again with the mindset. What about this credibility case? You've got confidence. Maybe you've got the courage.
So how do you build credibility? Okay, got it. Great question. I'm going to tell you, and that's another reason to get your butt to the boot camp because there will be tons of operators there. A lot of them will be my students, successful warriors, but a lot of others as well that are there to raise money and whatnot. Everybody starts in this business by aligning with a team that's done it before. Just virtually everybody. I mean, there may be 1% that tries to do it on their own. I would be in the 1%, but I did it on my own. But most people, they'll align with a team that has 300 doors, 500 doors, 1,000 doors. And they'll say, hey, if I bring you a deal, can we work on it together? Or if I raise money for your deal, can we work on it together? And most people will say yes, if they like you, after you build a relationship. And then for credibility, when that person that's brand new goes to talk to a broker or an investor, they use the we word. We own 300 doors, 500 doors, 1,000 doors, and they use that to get credibility pigtailing on someone else's team. And that's how everybody does this, Aaron. And I'm sure you know this, but this is educating your peeps here. And that's how it's done. You find what's called a sponsor, for example, someone that's going to sign on the debt for you. You've got to have some lending requirements met, like net worth equal to the loan amount, post-closing liquidity equal to about 10% of the loan amount. And you've got to have experience components. So you got to have liquidity, net worth, and experience. And you can find one person that satisfies all those requirements, but it's the team that has to satisfy those requirements. Yeah. I have roofs. I have 6 buildings here at my compound, and they're being re-roofed, and somebody must have kicked a cord or something. Anyway, so we're back at it. I forgot where we were though, my friend.
Well, that's interesting. You're paying the bills, right?
Yes, yes, I'm definitely paying the bills.
The rent checks are coming in, so
yes.
Okay, what I was curious about is okay, you've got the team, they're bringing in the deals, they're closing deals, and the door count, the units are stacking up. What about asset management? Does it become harder to manage the more the more units, deals you close, and what happens after the fact?
Well, certainly asset management's the biggest part of the whole thing. Okay, that's when we split up at general partnerships. That's the biggest split, because that goes on for years. And I will tell you, in this current environment, asset management is critical. There are a lot of new operators that are into this business, and the water is going out right now. And we're going to see who's naked when the water's out. I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of operators that didn't raise operating reserves, for example, and they don't have extra cash. And so, and there are a lot of operators that have never operated in a tough environment where occupancy is critical. And so, it's asset management's a very big piece of this, and you've got to have, very tight controls on your metrics, your key performance indicators, your KPIs, and you've got to be tracking those on a weekly basis. What's your occupancy? What are your renewals? What do your delinquencies look like? How long is your maintenance taking? Are your people happy? What anomalies are happening? What do your collections look like? These are all things that you're going to be checking on at least a weekly basis with any decent sized asset, and calls with your third party property management company. You get large enough, and ideally you take it in-house if you can. I haven't done that yet. I'm at about 5,000 doors. I haven't done it yet, but that's our plan ultimately. I just don't want to deal with that right now. I want to focus on acquisitions, because I believe there's incredible opportunity coming. And so I don't want to get locked down on creating that management entity right now, because there's a lot to it. I've owned a management company for decades, but it's a lot. And so I'm not doing that yet, but I likely very well will within the next year or so. Go vertical, be vertically integrated as it relates to management. So
it definitely seems like it's attainable for just about anybody to get into. However, it really does seem like it's pretty involved. Is this something that somebody can do while still working their W-2? And
great question.
How long is what kind of a transition is this?
Sure. Well, I've got many students that have retired from very high paying, very consuming W-2 jobs with families, with kids. They did it on the side. Now, did they work hard? Yeah, they busted their butts. They grinded for a few years like most people won't, so that they can live the rest of their life like most people can't. So they worked hard, but I've got students that have done it in 2 or 3 years. I'm not exaggerating. Now these are warriors that have done it. I'm not sure. If you could do it just by coming to the boot camp, you might want to consider coaching, and whether it's with me or not. But you're basically paying for speed. Can you do it on your own? Yes, but it's much, much faster if you've got resources and infrastructure and things to help you, and guidance and so on, because there are a lot of pieces. But it's like anything else. Everybody starts out an amateur, and so don't be intimidated by it. And again, you don't have to be an expert at every piece. You want to focus on what you're good at. Double down on that, bring that to a team, and then, then you're able to, get aligned and doing what you're loving. And I'll tell you, when I see two people, and the most common partnerships that I see when I interview operators, I've interviewed some of the largest operators really in the world on my show. And the most common pair up I see is an analytical person with an outgoing person. And if they're playing in their strengths, my God, that's a match made in heaven, because they've got it licked. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that, and myself included. My last partner was a CPA. My current partner is super analytical, and I'm the antithesis. So yeah, there you go.
Well, this is all incredible information.
Thank you.
For you personally, you've got the podcast, you've got the mentorship and the boot camps, and in fact, you also started a nonprofit.
I typically do that at the end of like a presentation on psychology, but let me bring it up now. So, I immigrated to Denver, right? I talked about that. But I knew I always wanted to live on the beach, and there's no beach in Denver, and it's landlocked. And so, I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf. And 20 years later, I built what's now about a $20 million mansion on the beach. I owned the beach on one side. I had my boats on the back side. Gulf to Bay. It was called a Gulf to Bay. It sliced through an island. And this house was magnificent. Let me just briefly describe it. I had a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. It was like the pool was in magazines. I had, big, giant spiral staircase up through the middle of the house, wine cellar, elevator. On the second floor, I had aquariums custom built that curved around the staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. So I worked for that house for 20 years, Aaron. Okay, that was my goal for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, so 20 years, 2 months. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. I had a lot of limiting beliefs about, whether I was good enough, frankly. I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? So I had these limiting beliefs, and this was to prove to the world that I was good enough, okay? So I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, and I got depressed. And I don't mean a little depressed. I mean, I got really depressed. I'm like, what the hell? How could I be depressed? I've just achieved success like times 10,000. I had the Maserati. I had two Mercedes. I had the boats, the jet skis, the beautiful family inside sleeping. And when I look back on it, Aaron, there were several things happening. The first thing is you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. And I didn't have a vision for the future. I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that's number one. Number two is it's never about the goals. You need the goals to create that burning desire and that hunger. If you come to my boot camp, the first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what you want and why you want it, right? So that's the first thing we do there. And by the way, if you can't come to the boot camp, on Rod's links at the bottom is my goal setting workshop. I do it every year on New Year's Day. It's about an hour, and there's a guide you can download. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. Go do your freaking goals, because here's the thing, Aaron. Most people spend more time planning a birthday party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life. So have your spouse do it. Go there to Rod's links, or have your child, if they're over 10 years old, do it. Get them started off right. Anyway, I digress. But so anyway, so the second thing was it's never about the goals. It's about progress and growth. Happiness comes from progress and growth. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was the second piece. But the third thing was I'd been totally focused on me. So focused on success, proving the world I was good enough. Rod, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the year I met Tony Robbins, and I went and saw him live, and I found out that he fed families for the holidays. And I was like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. But I went home, and I called my brother who lived in Denver, who I was visiting for Thanksgiving. And I said, bro, let's feed 5 families. And so he called a church and found 5 families who really needed help. Aaron, the third family changed my life. We go up to this house. There was this Hispanic woman with 5 kids in this tiny, crappy 1-bedroom. And she comes out, and we'd bought toys for the kids, frozen turkeys and food. And she comes out, and she sees all this stuff on the porch, and she starts crying. And her kids come out. 2 of the older ones start crying. And I start crying. And I was hooked. In the last 23 years, Aaron, I'm blessed to say that we have fed somewhere between 130 and 140,000 children for the holidays here in Sarasota and Bradenton, Florida. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids. We did 1,700 2.5 weeks ago. We've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for officers to keep in their vehicle if they encounter a child that's been traumatized. And I'm not bragging with this. There's a message in all this. And the message is, we've been taught to achieve to be happy. Like we shouldn't really be happy until we've reached some level of achievement. But I'm going to tell you, if you're giving back in any fashion, you're happily achieving. And I know that's a play on words, but it's an important one. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science. If you want to learn multifamily, get to my freaking boot camp. I'll give you the blueprint. You just have to go do it. Okay. That's it. There's no secret sauce. I'll tell you what to do. You just have to go do it. I'll give you the map. But fulfillment is an art. Okay. You got to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's animals or the environment or the elderly, whatever it is. And you give back right now, because then you'll be happily achieving, you'll be fulfilled. And don't sit there and say, yeah, you had money, that's why you did it. No, the money comes faster when you give back. Okay. And so, I'm sorry, I bumped the mic because I got excited. I don't know if that was loud in your ear, but anyway, the money comes faster when you do it. Now, you don't do it for that reason, but that's how God works. And so, give back right now. If you don't have money, give of your time. Like I said, the success will come faster if you do. We did a Hall of Fame for my Warriors at my last live event in Denver. And we basically, anyway, we acknowledged 10 warriors that were exemplary. And I started to notice a pattern that on their slides, we did a slide for each one of them. Every single one of them did something to give back. Schools in India, veterans homelessness, veterans suicide, sexual trafficking. Every single one had something they did philanthropic. And I pointed to the 900 people there. I pointed to the slides, and I said, that is what we call a clue. Okay, so there you have it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The bigger your goals, the more you can contribute, the bigger impact you can have. And only A-list. I was just saying that only A-listers come to my birthday party, so I really do have to throw a nice show. But
Listen,
I can't see it, but I can hear the beeps going off.
Right now.
It's funny. Well, so far we're still connected.
I'm back on. No, I'm back on. I'm back on. We're all good here, buddy. We're all good.
We're no strangers, you and I, to technical issues when it comes to podcasting. You reminded me of another Tony Robbins saying, which is when it comes to giving back, it's that success without contribution is the greatest failure.
Agreed. I've interviewed multi-mega millionaires on my show, Aaron, and I can tell if they're like I was before my epiphany when I turned 40, and I feel sorry for them, okay? Because they may be successful financially, but they are not fulfilled and they're not truly happy. And I feel sorry for them. And of course, they have to come to that realization and have that epiphany themselves. And I hate to say it, but sometimes they never do. And so, and if you're listening, you no longer have an excuse. You no longer have an excuse. You just incorporate it into your life, because frankly, if you want success, like I said, it'll happen faster. That's the way God works. Now, you don't do it for that reason, but that's just how it works, and you'll be happier and fulfilled. I'm really glad that you allowed me to talk about that, because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to earning more money and achievement, sometimes for some people it's like a dopamine addiction. You just need to spend more money on bigger dopamine hits. It's kind of like alcohol. You're just drinking more, whereas contributing, it's far more fulfilling. You achieve to give back and make an impact in your community and your world. So please.
Well, we're both doing it. We're both doing it with our podcast here, aren't we, Aaron? I mean, really. I mean, I'm doing it, by coaching. You're doing it by coaching with your podcast. It's very, very rewarding. I'm sure you get a lot of positive feedback and love. And I will tell you, without any ego, I get literally love every single day. I get texts. I was just looking at my phone. I got love from one of my warriors just now, and I get DMs. I get emails. I get gifts. I get cards. I have a whole wall in my office, down in my other office, with hundreds of thank you cards from people. And, it's my greatest gift there, next to my kids and, my family. It's my greatest gift ever. And so, and that's also a contribution. And, honestly, contribution is a basic human need. Okay. It's a basic human need. We have a need to contribute. And candidly, anything in the universe that doesn't contribute in some fashion actually gets eliminated. So, that's from Tony Robbins. I got that from Tony Robbins.
Yeah, the hierarchy of personal needs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely, and it includes self-awareness and personal achievement, and setting goals and being being valued as a person, but then contributing is valuing others. So you also not only need to feel as though your life has worth from others, but you also need to give that value back.
Yeah.
There was
Great.
I remember somebody saying, I need to fill my cup up before I can fill others. And there was somebody had mentioned, they said, no, that's not how you look at it. Cut the bottom off that cup. Uh, Abundance should flow right through you. And
Yeah,
that's
love it, love it, love it. Yeah, when I was with Tony at his resort in Fiji, he brought in this spiritual leader, and they were doing this exercise called oneness, where they put their hands on your head. He brought a bunch of monks. This guy has hundreds of millions of followers in India. This is a real deal guy, and I saw some extraordinary things, I will tell you. But they taught us how to do it, how to flow that energy through our bodies, into our hands, into somebody's forehead, and just some miraculous things we saw happening. But that just reminded me of it when you said, and there's so much abundance in the world. People that are successful recognize that. It's the people that perceive limitations are the ones that never get ahead, because even with this AI, a lot of people losing jobs, there will be new ones formed, to capitalize on that AI. And so, if you can have that abundance mindset, I just didn't own your power clip on this actually, and if you can have that abundance mindset, that's how you achieve success. You don't let things slow you down or stop you.
I'm sorry. Now I'm just thinking about curries and tandoori chicken. But so okay, you've got the boot camp coming up, and you're doing all this good. What's next for you? Where does this go? Do you just continue this? So
I love what I do right now, man. I just totally love it. I mean, I'm excited about opportunities that are coming to buy some. Of course, in 2008 and 9, I got crushed by that wave. I'm surfing this
Mhm.
wave, Aaron. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm gearing up. That's my metaphor for this. Because I got my butt handed to me, and this time I'm really ready for it, and very excited about it. And of course, there'll be pain, but you know what? I lost $50 million. So the people that lose will be okay, as long as they don't give up and they get back up and get back on the horse. And, there, I will tell you, a lot of people fear failure. Don't fear failure. I call them seminars. That was a $50 million seminar. It was an expensive seminar. Okay. But it was a $50 million seminar. And, I have built 27 businesses so far in my career. And I was shocked when I did a count a few years ago. And several were worth tens of millions of dollars. 2 right now are, but most were spectacular, flaming seminars. Okay, we fail our way to success. If you're going to fear anything, fear regret. Don't fear failure. Okay, there was this nurse in Australia named Bronnie Ware. She's a hospice nurse, so she was taking care of patients when they were about to die, and she asked him a question, Aaron. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it, something like The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? It was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. And candidly, you're an exemplary example of that, my friend. I salute you. And don't fear failure if you're sitting here listening, if you're analytical. Fear being in the same place you are right now 2 or 3 years from now, unless you absolutely freaking love where you are right now. That's what you want to fear.
yeah, do you think many of them said, "I wish I spent more time in the office or
Right,
gotten that
right,
promotion"?
right.
Yeah, I'm certain, and I do remember. I think did you have her on your show?
No, I did not have
I,
Bronnie Ware on my
I
show. No,
believe.
actually, I should. That's a good idea. Actually, I'm sure I could get her
I
because I talk about her all
believe,
the time.
yeah, I believe I've heard her on a podcast talking about the
Wow,
book, but
wow.
yeah, it was about not reaching their potential, not spending enough time with family, and you're not enjoying life as much.
You,
But I want to ask you a little bit more about the specifics on apartment building. Um, but what I wanted to ask you was about the current economy and
Well,
apartment
I
buildings.
think, yeah, I think we're headed for a train wreck. I really do. I think in commercial real estate, maybe not in residential, although it's slowed down massively. Anyway, so it's slowed down in residential, but commercial is I don't see a solution unless they bail it out. If these banks start failing because the debt, problem that the Fed has already made an announcement that they want banks to work with what they say, quote unquote, credit worthy borrowers and do forbearances and give them breathing room. But I have to tell you, I know some big operators that are very, very good operators, world class, that are freaking out right now. They've got bridge debt. They're in trouble. That bridge debt is coming due. The reserve payments that the bridge lenders are requiring have exponentially increased. I know one example. We were looking at an asset in San Antonio, and the reserve payment from this borrower went from $8,000 a month to $80,000 a month. Okay, on a small asset, and people can't afford that. And so, if you've got debt coming due, which is 1.6 trillion in the commercial space by the end of next year, you have two options. You either have to sell or you have to refinance. Sales are down over 75% year over year. That's first quarter. I bet it's worse than that second quarter here. I need to see what second quarter is going to show up. But so sales are way down. So that's not a great option. Refinancing is the only other option. I'm going to tell you, with the rates where they are, most operators have to sink a lot of money to pay down the debt to even have a lender sniff it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then we've got rate caps. They have to buy what's called a rate cap. And to give you an idea what's happened there, if you wanted $100 million rate cap in 2020, for 3 years, 3% rate cap. So the rate's not going to go up more than 3% over 3 years. Back in 2020, that was $23,000. Okay. That same rate cap today, actually, this was about 6 months ago. It's probably worse than this now, but 6 months ago, that same rate cap for 100 million for 1 year, forget 3 years, 1 year for 3% was 2.3 million. Okay. That's what's happened. So these people that can't sell, that have to refinance, they have to do capital calls to their investors. If they're successful, maybe they can pull it out. If they can't, they've got to fire sell. And so, this is why I've got a fund put together. This is why, I'm gearing up to hopefully snag a few of these assets and, get some decent deals. What do we call it? We call it, integrity-filled opportunism. And that's really what it is. You can maintain your integrity, but you look for opportunities. And that's kind of how we're approaching this, with integrity, but we're looking for these distressed assets that we can capitalize on.
Yeah, for the last few years, 2018, 19, 2021, there was a lot of free money out there, a lot of cheap money. Yep. And there was a rush into the apartment building space. And now a lot of these less experienced syndicators and many the more experienced syndicators that didn't just maybe they were just buying hand over fist and weren't paying attention to the fundamentals. Those short-term loans are coming due, and now they're going to have to sell to somebody with a higher interest rate, or they're going to have to refinance to a higher interest rate. It looks like there's a lot of opportunity on the horizon. How does one, how do you prepare ahead of time for that?
Well, yeah, good question. Well, obviously cash is king in a crisis. Okay. So, conserve cash for sure. Okay. Don't buy the cars right now. Don't buy the frivolous things right now. And I've conserved a lot of cash, and I have access to a lot of cash just because of my reach with my podcast and some of my other social platforms. And so that's number one. Number two is you got to educate yourself. I don't care what your vehicle is. Pick a vehicle, because I think everything's going on sale. Like I said, businesses, other asset classes of real estate, and learn that vehicle as fast as you can. And so, like I said, I don't care if you come to my boot camp, but if not, go to somebody else's and get up to speed. If it's going to be multifamily for you, if it's going to be something else, go learn that. If it's going to be residential, go learn that. There's going to be opportunity in everything. I really believe that. So, it's education, it's networking, because again, believe it or not, when I get a new coaching student, I say this to them, and it sounds a little crazy, but I tell them, listen, focus more on the relationships than learning this business, because the relationships are actually more important. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And so, I tell a new student that get connected. My most successful coaching students, warriors, are the ones that are the most connected in the community. We do all sorts of things to facilitate those connections, but that's super important. And so, it's that education, it's the networking and building relationships. And then, first it starts with picking your vehicle, pick your vehicle, then the networking, education, and conserving cash, and or talking to everybody that has cash and saying, hey, if it's multifamily, for example, we're getting excited. There are deals coming in the multifamily space. By the way, if you know anybody that might be interested in partnering with me, let me know. It's that simple. And you start those relationships and those conversations so you have access to money. Because I'm going to tell you, Aaron, I think finding the money is going to be much harder than finding the deals and what's coming. I think the deals will be here. It's going to be finding the money, both debt and equity. Equity meaning down payment money, guys. For those of you in the commercial multifamily space, equity is the amount out of pocket that you put into a deal. And then, of course, the debt is the rest of the capital stack.
Okay, so a new syndicate or new investor comes into the apartment building syndication space, and
Mm-hmm.
what does a new team member bring to the team? What are they? How
Well,
do
the
they?
fastest way, yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, my friend. I apologize. That's the only hate I get on my podcast. I have 4.5 stars. I'd have 5 if I didn't interrupt so much. Well, I will tell you, the 2 quickest ways to get ingrained with a team are either find deals or bring money or raise money. So raise or bring money. Those are the fastest ways to get acclimated to a team. If you can do one of those 2 things, raise money, bring your own money, or find deals. And now there are other ways as well. Maybe you do the underwriting if you become really good at that, or you're great with asset management, you become really good at that. So there are other ways, but those are the 2 quickest, is the money and the deals.
So learn and hone a particular skill within
Yes.
a team.
You're what you're already strong in, though. Focus on your strengths. That's critical. Don't try to build your weaknesses. Focus on your strengths. That's when you're going to succeed. And then you hire, align, or partner for your weaknesses.
Sounds great. Sounds actually it sounds very approachable, manageable for just about anybody. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
Just listen. Get educated as fast as you can, because this could be the greatest transfer of wealth we see in our lifetimes. Even if it's not, it will still be a serious reckoning, and there will be a lot of opportunity. Again, if it's boot camp, if it's multifamily, come to my Orlando boot camp, September 15th through the 17th. Go to rodslinks.com, rods plural, links plural.com. There's a lot of other free resources there, incredible books there that are free, a lot of great stuff. My podcast, my goal setting workshop is there, lots of other things, master classes I've done, all free. And if you use the code, if the price has gone up on the boot camp, it's more than $197. Use the code HALE, and you can still get that $197 price. And I hope I see you there. And thanks for having me, Aaron. It was a real treat to be on with you. You asked some really good questions I frankly haven't been asked before. So very, very impressed.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Rod, for sharing your time and your information, your knowledge
Thank you.
with our audience.
Thank you.